You know, sometimes you'll be scrolling through Twitter and you'll see that there's a game that you've never heard of and it's collabing with something. Usually, unless you know the entity that it's collabing with, you won't care that much. Like, for example, someone who has seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners might become interested in Wuthering Waves because they hear about the collab. That isn't what happened to me, or isn't really even kind of similar to what happened to me. Let's go explore a little more about the situation I'm talking about. Let's say that there's a gacha game that you do follow, and it's collabing with something that you haven't really seen. For example, I play Nikke. I don't really know all that much about Lycoris Recoil, however. At the same time, it's also for Evangelion too, actually. At the same time, I rolled for those characters mainly because of FOMO. Yeah, gacha games do that. But now, what is the situation that makes no sense given those scenarios I just provided? How about someone who has never really played a gacha game or has never heard of it, playing a gacha game because of a collab with something they also haven't consumed? This video is describing my little journey as to how I have recently started playing Morimens, a card building gacha game that has recently collaborated with the hit visual novel Saya no Uta, of which I also haven't consumed. So, be me. Imagine you're on Twitter now, okay? You're scrolling your feed, and then all of a sudden you see someone say, "Wow, I can't believe that Saya no Uta's collabing with something. I haven't seen this really collab with anything in a really long time." That's effectively what I saw on Twitter a couple of days ago. Then I proceeded to look at what it was. I know what Saya no Uta is. I don't know what Morimens is, but at the time I saw Saya no Uta and I was like, I know that this is two things about Saya no Uta. I know that it's controversial because of the content of the game, and I also know it's written by Gen Urobuchi, or how do you pronounce his name?
General Urobuchi is a Japanese.
Apparently it's Urobuchi. Yeah, apparently it's Urobuchi. Okay, I'm gonna refer to. I'll probably refer to him by his full name. Actually, let's not kid ourselves. But I know about Gen Urobuchi. He obviously has written Saya no Uta. I am aware of that. I was aware of that to begin with. A lot of people know him for a couple of other works, though. I think, at least over here in the West. I think in Japan they probably do know him quite well for Saya no Uta, since Saya no Uta is not like exactly like a niche VN. It's pretty well known. But I know him for Madoka, and especially for Fate Zero, as he is the writer for both of those. One can immediately glean that he tends to have a taste on the darker end. He has works that are not very, I don't know, viewer friendly, but they're not exactly the safest animes to be watching because of content, either horror with Madoka or just violence with Zero. Zero's not even particularly violent, but the idea behind it, it's supposed to be grim and edgy. Saya no Uta is not really any different, as, again, it is gory as well. The whole point of the VN really circling around mysterious girl Saya, who's actually an Eldritch Abomination, that the main guy, I believe, he can't see human. He stopped seeing humans as humans. They're all just like amorphous Eldritch Abomination blobs. And Saya is the only person who he sees as human, which, I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be one of those Eldritch Abomination blobs. But regardless, game follows them. I don't know anything about Saya no Uta. I will probably eventually play it, because you know, it's one of the most influential VODs from what I've heard, and I've heard it's worth playing, so I'll take the recommendation, and I'll go through it. Now, with that being put into perspective, that means that I know nothing about Moriman's the Gacha game, and is collabing with another piece of fiction that I have never read, by an author who I've really only interacted with once, and it's for something I don't even particularly like, because I feel like Fate Zero is worse than Fate Stay Night, which is something that I still believe to this day. So with that being said, it's a bit difficult for me to... I think it's difficult for most to say that I had a reason to want to play the game, especially when it's a collab that doesn't particularly appeal to me, nor is it a gacha game that I really know anything about. On top of that, I don't really play card building games. I don't really play any games at all that have anything to do with cards at all, for the matter. I played, you know, like Hearthstone, like, a long time ago. But, you know, that doesn't really... I didn't really feel that strongly about it, frankly. Now, again, that being said, I think that we all know the direction that I actually went in. I saw that and I was like, huh, you know what? Let's download the game. Now, I want to explain my reasoning for that, because I think it's kind of fun to think about why I even did it, because even I don't really know why I did it. Obviously, some part of this is FOMO. If I ever wanted to play a gacha game, starting during a collab just makes sense, because generally speaking, you'll get a limited time character and you'll have them, while other people who start later might not be able to get a character. I don't really know how limiteds work in this game, or at least I didn't until I learned that later on they just get added to a pool anyways, but, you know, prior to learning that, from my perspective, getting a character who apparently is free, since it was being advertised everywhere that Saya was free, then, you know, it's especially a good reason. With, like, how, for example, HSR, if you started a new account, seeing the fact that you can get a free Gilgamesh or Archer, that should be appealing to new players, because, you know, they're free 5 stars. Saya, similarly, is a free 5-star. That being said, again, let's talk a little bit about why I downloaded it. I downloaded the game thinking about that, but also, there is one important factor that actually played quite a big role in why I downloaded the game. And it's Twitter. Yeah, this is weird to admit to, because I insult Twitter pretty frequently. But yes, Twitter had a positive impact on my perception of something. Shocking. Especially with how Twitter loves to hate on things. The More Events community did a fantastic job of pushing their love for the game as far as they could. Rather than talk down to any other game, which is something I deeply dislike, they actively were encouraging people to get into the game, talking about how friendly it was to beginners, about how there's a free Saya, and how, generally speaking, it's one of the most fun and free-to-play gacha games that you could possibly get. And hearing all that, on top of the fact that apparently it was a Lovecraftian game, which I had no real experience with, so I was deeply intrigued, I downloaded the game, and I started playing. So the first thing I did was do the tutorials, go through the game a little bit. I liked how I was playing. I liked the feeling of the game. I felt comfortable with how some characters played. My first character, I believe, was I don't remember her name. You know, like the construction-looking girl, the builder. Yeah, that was my first character. Didn't really use it too long though, considering that I immediately, when I got enough currency and the ability to roll, I immediately proceeded to roll a bunch on Saya's banner, and I got both her and her thingy, I think they're called like VODs, right? Wheel of Destiny, is that what it's probably standing for? But yeah, I got her thingy, her signature, and I proceeded to immediately look on Reddit and look up Saya teams, which unfortunately for me apparently require me getting like characters I don't have. I don't have the previous collab character, so I'm toughing it out, right? Just gotta sit through it and wait. Regardless, yeah, I got Saya, and I started going through the game, and there are a couple of things that I want to comment about the gameplay. It isn't super complicated at the beginning, and you can feel your impact pretty noticeably. At the same time, the game also does not feel like it's babying you too much, because you start to notice pretty quickly within, I think it's like after chapter 1, you notice that enemies' health starts to grow, and you could take damage pretty quickly. Especially since I was using Saya, who already drains HP on one of her skills. This was immediately something I noticed. I didn't lose yet, because I'm goated, I guess. No, that's not actually true. I was just being careful because I knew that if I wasn't careful, Saya and the rest of the team would die. So I just played carefully. My team for most of Chapter 2 was Saya, Sangha, the other blue girl, and Halat. Halat? I think it's Halat. Regardless, yeah, that was my team, and yeah, I know that there's probably going to be some like pro Mori Romance players probably going to be like, wow, that team doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it does make sense or not. Regardless, yeah, I was able to get through most of the chapter really comfortably, actually. While there were some times where I was a little close, I think, to losing. Well, I don't even think that's true. I think I'm just insulting myself for no reason now. I don't know, I cleared pretty comfortably. I didn't have any real issues. I got through the chapters pretty well. And I'll also comment one thing, which is that certain characters' skills are what are they called? They're like their ults, their bursts, whatever you want to call them. Their big skill, their big button. Most characters' big buttons. I was curious if their animations were going to be good, and I think a lot of them are kind of whatever so far. But I think the two that I've ended up liking, I like Clementine's because I didn't get her. I did like Clementine's, and I think the bigger standout for me was obviously the collab character, Saya. I thought that skill looked really good. So I was pleased with that. Animations of the game look pretty good, and I like the complexity behind the cards too, especially considering that I feel like, generally speaking, I realize that when I'm able to do something smart and impactful, I will get results that match to it. So with that being said, how has the journey continued from you? Well, immediately let's talk about one thing. Limited characters in this game. You could get them off of standard stuff at a lower rate, which is how I got Clementine, but wow, I am kind of desperate because apparently I started like a couple of days after, like, I believe her name is Thais, like the Kara support girl who's like extremely bad, like she bad as hell, like, like that. Yeah. I don't think I need to hide the fact that she's attractive, do I? Everyone on Reddit seemed to say the same thing when I was looking for help, or for certain characters who to build. It seemed like most people think she's attractive, and I think that's kind of the point since she's so sweet shub anyways. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. Game make me a little sad because I don't get a very attractive woman. But aside from that, the complexity of the game is really neat. I also like the fact that I've been able to get like a lot of characters, frankly speaking. I got like a lot of characters. I'm really only missing some of the limited characters now, and to be fair, they're the limited characters I need pretty badly. Like I need Thais, and I need like well, what's her name? Moosh? I don't even know what her name is. The other girl who's apparently, I think, from the last collab. Yeah, I need those characters, frankly, and they're both limited, so it's a bit unfortunate, but limited characters being available is a pro for the game. On top of that, the rates are pretty decent, and dupes aren't really necessary in the game since you can buy dupes from the shop anyways. Generally speaking, I think that the game has been really kind with rewards. The game is not particularly... It feels like it's going to get pretty difficult later on, but it feels like a game where you're going to be able to, play pretty intelligently and you'll get results. Your loadout also seems to play quite a big role, since I didn't really know that, putting lower rarity keyflames, I believe is what they're not, the keyflame generator card would actually be pretty helpful. I didn't realize that, so when I did, wow, that played a big role. I was able to clear quite quickly. But yeah, it's very complex, the game. It's very enjoyable. And I feel like I should probably comment about the story. While the story I don't think is like perfect, it's fairly interesting and I really like it. Obviously I think some of the story, like the event story right now, clearly expected you to like be a little further in the story. So I was pretty caught off guard when like I, with no exposure to any online, to the Reddit community or like the Twitter community for it, I started reading the event story for Saya, and then like the what's it called? It showed like a I guess like a vision of Dice talking about like being seated, and I was like, whoa, that was seriously, I would say off-putting, but you know, it was definitely not off-putting, but you know, it was surprising. I'll put it that way. All in all, I'm enjoying the game. I probably will continue playing the game. It's one of those games that I think is actually pretty fun, and you know, like, I think it's one of those games that I could happily open up on my phone and play and actually not be like annoyed. Like, you know, like opening up like any of the Holio games or Woo on my phone would be like kind of terrible. HSR's the exception, but even then I'd rather not play HSR on my phone, all things considered, because I don't know, there's not that much content to do post where I'm at in the game. And, you know, Fate is cool, but if there's no content, it's barren. Blue Archive, when is, you know, like I do my dailies and that's really it, because there's not much to do outside of them. Nikkei is a little dangerous to open outside, and even then, it's when you do the content, it's done. I feel like this is a game that I could load in a couple of times and keep playing a couple of times over. I think it's fun. Happen to be starting playing the game. That has been my journey of starting a gacha game after it collabed with another game that I also haven't played, and that somehow convinced me to download the game. That has been the journey. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.